thank you, ETHR, for organizing this wonderful Human Capital Experience Conference and inviting me. This virtual setting looks amazing and is yet another example of business innovation and resilience. The pandemic has disrupted lives of people like we had never imagined, and nothing that could have prepared the humanity for this. At the time I attended my last conference, which was about a couple of months back, the world was still shrouded in a cloud of uncertainty. Questions like how long will this pandemic continue? How many lives will we lose? And how many livelihoods? We still remember the news clippings on migrant workers having to go back to their hometowns in hopes of survival. Those were difficult times indeed, and are not to be mistaken that they are over, even though things around us have opened up. But today, as we join together right after the Festival of Lights, Diwali, perhaps there are initial rays of hope for everyone, although in a changed world. In the last few quarters, we've survived and recovered from a pandemic, and it's time to revive our business models and rediscover processes that will help companies outperform themselves. I'm hearing a lot of talk about getting paid, hiring, growth, and demand to the pre-COVID times. While I agree that some of that chaos should return and should return fast, a more pertinent question is, should it return in the manner it existed and at the cost we have all paid during the lockdown? And that's where we've been getting our clients to see the new emerging definition of work, workplace, and workforce. Coming to the topic for today, COVID has transformed the way we work. Every CEO and head of an organization that I'm meeting is asking us, how do I measure performance and productivity in the new norm? With no one punching in their hours and no call the 10 a.m. stand-ups, how do we judge people performance? As many people come back to offices and there is a bit of a hybrid workforce model that will emerge, organizations will find themselves going through yet another transition. No wonder we need new definitions and a much proactive approach for the new normal. What I'm going to do in the limited time I have with you is to call out the top 5 ways that we are seeing being adopted as a more proactive approach to build a high performance culture. Or rather, let me put it as a high culture of accountability. Everything that you will hear and learn today in this conference from me and from other fellow speakers will not be conclusive, but what we certainly have as PeopleStrong is a strong validation of over 300 plus organizations that we continue to serve, have actually served very effectively during this pandemic, and are helping them transition and settle in with this redesign. Like how technology is the cause and effect of every disruption, HR technology has to solve more questions as businesses lead their way back to recovery and revival. It will range from restoring trust in people to helping them achieve more while they see less of each other. Build a truly learning organization, because the only way businesses and individuals will survive and, more importantly, reshape the culture where we are close even when we are far. With that as a quick context, ladies and gentlemen, let's start with the first set in adopting a proactive approach towards performance and productivity. The one that we've essentially seen is bringing a lot of life and visibility to goals. In a recent survey conducted by PeopleStrong, over 60% of the managers that we asked said that they are struggling to align the teams, have visibility into their goals and tasks, and struggling to actually help them perform better in this virtual world. For an organization to have that invisibility about what people are doing and why can only point towards disastrous consequences. In that respect, world's leading organizations, even in the pre-COVID time, had already adopted and attributed their success to OKRs, including the likes of Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc. OKR help bring in that visibility and transparency of goals in an organization at different levels of hierarchy. When everyone knows everyone else's goals, alignment becomes a lot more easier. There was a great example in our history just at the start of the pandemic when we helped a US based software organization aligning their OKRs right from the CEO down to the last man and woman working in that enterprise. And it had some dramatic impacts. One, there was some very contextual collaboration that was put into place, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the preceding few points. But more importantly, in just about 6 months, they were able to add significant speed to the execution of some very critical projects that they were essentially working. So OKR has to be looked at slightly unconventionally, not necessarily about the annual exercise of performance management and goal setting, but actually about talking over the next few weeks and maybe a month or two to add that rocket fuel into how you really want to be able to complete a set of tasks in an enterprise, which in the most uncertain times is the only way companies can actually progress. The second is really something that I've been talking about in multiple forums, and that is how collaboration has emerged as the new currency. About 11 months ago, distributed workforce was a category that was associated with a few industry sectors like financial services and retail and a few others like QSR, etc. It was complexity in itself to manage a workforce that was essentially never going to be at one place at any given point in time. Today, if you look at this, it is a characteristic associated with literally every organization, no matter what industry are you coming from. And while during the early days of the pandemic, it was quicker and convenient to switch to virtual conferencing tools and platforms like the one that we're using for this interaction, it clearly wasn't really sustainable. As I've said earlier, collaboration, unless it is contextual, actually can deliver very fewer and maybe very shallow results for each one of us. Whether you talk about outcomes, engagement, or trust, that happens to be the most important success parameter in the new normal. We've had our clients who've had to change their mind that collaboration is only a privilege available to the white collared category of their workforce. There were manufacturing organizations like Amara Raja that very quickly opened up their collaboration platform, which is PeopleStrong Zippy, to their blue collared people. They were able to do rostering and several other things, including well-being check-ins with everyone, and make that communication from the chairman real time with voice notes to the blue collared people during the lockdown, which created a very high level of engagement. WeMart was another such client in the retail space that was able to touch the lives of people working in stores, or even when the stores were shut, have an ongoing communication around organization wide bulletins and tasks. And as the news was essentially trickling down in terms of what's going to be the way we are going to grapple with this pandemic. The third, as we see, is how the roles of manager in the conventional sense is becoming a lot more redundant, and it is pushing managers to play the role of mentor. I can't really lay enough stress that managers do a great job of getting and managing a workforce, but very few actually take accountability for their performance and improvement. And that's really led the play of technology to introduce a continuous feedback and a recognition platform, which is really where managers are able to engage with employees, give feedback freely about not just their goals, but actually about their behaviors, and more importantly, as managers, help them improve their performance. We've seen this across manufacturing, across internet businesses, a lot of connection between your performance, your potential, your career, your learning is all being played out in how this continuous feedback and recognition feature is coming live for many of our clients as we essentially see play out at this point in time. A big change in mindset, and not just tools. Very often when we see one technology not necessarily deliver the kind of outcomes that we're looking at, we start to look for an alternative for a technology not necessarily looking at inward to understand what is that we literally have to change in our mindset to make it a lot more effective. Since I've invested about 2 decades previous to coming on to work for PeopleStrong in consulting, the conventional definition of culture has had 3 pillars. It's leadership behavior, it's the work practices, the HR policies and the processes. And the third is the infrastructure, which is really where we build those great offices. And in the new normal being set into how the workplace is being redesigned, a large part of that is going to be your HR tech being an extension of that infrastructure that enables everybody to operate seamlessly from their homes. So we are already seeing a massive shift from HR tech onto work tech and a strong emergence between the two. And there is great amount of work that we're doing at PeopleStrong to build the next generation of talent and work OS. When we're talking about the changing mindsets, I do want to be able to bring out the fact uh, it's not just about adding more agility onto how you want to be able to collaborate, the point that we've already spoken about. It's a lot more about alignment at different levels. It's a lot more about how an organization can keep track at the organizational, at the departmental, and at the individual level, and actually make it a lot more ongoing and seamless, because at no point in time would you actually believe you've come to the end of your destination. We've also seen that contractual workforce or the permanent workforce, which is now also being replaced with a whole lot of introduction of gig, might be managed very differently from our permanent and full-time people. There might be concept of hourly pay in white collar professionals. There might be concept of uh, weekly or monthly uh, elements around pay and benefits and performance related activities that we would have to improvise as we're looking at not just engaging with one category of workforce like how we've done that in the past. The fifth and the last one for us really has been the play of artificial intelligence and machine learning into how we manage our workforce, but more importantly, empower our workforce. It's almost a bit like living through a science fiction movie where either we are like bots or we are not like bots. But as HR leaders, we need to figure out a way to help people become more efficient in leveraging technology to their benefit. It may mean automating mundane tasks or leveraging technology to augment work or simplifying the process of available information to them at any given point in time. I do believe the real outcome of artificial intelligence into the space of HR tech has to be measured by 3 different stakeholders. It has to simplify the work life for an employee and significantly enhance the experience for them. It has to enable HR to play a higher order purpose role in how they will be able to empower employees and empower business with real-time data and decision-making information, which is not relied on judgment, but actually on proven analytics. It's not about what happened in the hindsight, and hence we're not going to be driving the car looking at the rearview mirror. It's a lot more about the foresight of analytics that we need to be able to provide. And for business, very clearly to be able to drive better engagement and better outcomes with their teams. So, really with that in conclusion, as we ponder over these 5 themes, there are many other hygiene measures organizations must take for people function in a very, very effective manner. You could look at health, you could look at contactless, HR operations, and many more to help a transitioning workforce. It clearly is, as how Satya Nadella of Microsoft said, it's not about replacing one dogma with another. It, in my opinion, is really a lot more about resilience being fundamental to bringing in flexibility. And as we know that software is an amiable resource, the first thing we think we can do is to separate out the control plane from the usage plane. Performance and productivity are found clearly a new relevance due to the pandemic. These constructs have emerged on the scene with much fanfare, and they will remain relevant for some time. What remains to be seen, however, is if organizations will take this chance to redefine the old, ineffective definitions and replace them with flexible constructs that will go a long way in defining their success. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.